Hey everybody, welcome back to my garden. I'm a little ashamed because it has been 5 weeks since my last update, but I've been doing other videos, so I swear I haven't just forgotten about you guys. I did my tomato pruning 101 video, and I'm also still editing my potato harvest video. So without further ado, I'll take you through my garden and show you what's been happening lately. So I'm here in my smaller back garden. Here are the Jerusalem artichokes. As you can see, they are quite tall. That one on the right being the tallest. Jerusalem artichokes, also known as sunchokes, are a relative of the sunflower. So that's why if you've ever seen a sunflower, you probably notice that this looks quite similar. These lovely flowers over here are my garlic chives. From what I've read, garlic chive flowers are edible, so I'm definitely interested in maybe throwing one of those flower heads into a salad or maybe even onto a baked potato, just as a nice little garnish. My Alpine Strawberries, the sun is just coming out for pretty much the first time today. It was pretty overcast for most of the day, but you can see here little yellow strawberries. At the moment I've only ever seen yellow strawberries here. That's a pretty big one. I'm hoping that some of them will turn red. Unfortunately, we've been visited by some little critters which have been eating all the others that have started to form, so hopefully it'll give me something. So this is kind of interesting actually. This is where my garlic was, and of course I pulled that up probably a month or so ago. And this is actually a tomato plant that had self-seeded, also known as a volunteer, a rogue tomato plant. And I just kind of left it because I didn't think it was really harming anything around it. And it has gotten huge. So it's over there, it starts over there, and as you can see I pull it up and it's quite large. And it's interesting because I actually stopped growing tomato plants in these back gardens because I felt like they just didn't get enough sun here. But here's this tomato that's gotten quite large. There's some flowers right here, and there are even some green tomatoes. And from the looks of it, it looks like those are San Marzano tomatoes, which I have in my front yard. And I'm not actually sure how this plant got back here because I don't think I've ever grown San Marzano tomatoes back here. Or at least it's definitely been a few years since I've grown tomatoes at all back here. So, I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see if those ripen up. There's one of my sweet potato plants. At this point, my sweet potato plants are just kind of marauding through the garden, and as you can see, even up onto the grass. This is my nice zinnia, which has got lots of nice flowers, and the great thing about this is that it attracts pollinators to my gardens. My rhubarb is looking like it's probably coming to the end for this season. I'm definitely not unhappy with that. I've gotten tons of rhubarb this spring and summer, so I'm thinking if by the fall I get a bunch more stalks, I might harvest some. I don't want to over harvest because I want it to be able to still come back nice and strong next year, so I'll sort of play that one by ear. Coming into my other back garden, you can see here just a bunch of sweet potato vines. So I'm really looking forward to harvesting those. I don't think I'm supposed to harvest until October, so it'll be interesting to see. I'm gonna have to keep myself from taking a little peek. There's my asparagus. Nice and bushy. I'm definitely feeling confident that once I sort of cut that back in October, November, and cover it with some mulch, it should come back really nicely next year, and I should be able to get a decent amount of asparagus. Over here, my little fruit patch, I put in some Alpine Strawberries that I'd grown from seed, and I'm really happy with them because they started out really tiny. And I thought they were probably pretty root bound too, so I planted them and they seem to have popped up pretty well, so I'm happy about that. My berry plants are still pretty tiny, so I don't know, I guess I'll see how they do next year. My comfrey is huge. I can probably do some more chop and drop soon, which is where I chop up the comfrey and just drop it in areas where I think the plants would benefit from some fertilizer, and of course all the microorganisms and worms and everything will break that down. Comfrey is great because it has a nice long deep taproot which goes down into the soil and mines some of the nutrients that other plant roots won't be able to get. It brings it up into the leaves of the plant, and then when I take the leaves off and drop them somewhere and they decompose, the nutrients get returned to the soil. So that's a really awesome plant to sort of have as a companion plant. This is my gooseberry. As you can see, it's yellowing and it's actually losing some leaves. I'm a little nervous, but I also posted a video of this on our Facebook group for local gardeners, and a more experienced gardener told me that there doesn't seem to be a problem, that this is sort of normal for gooseberry at this time of year. And up front here I have my male and female hardy kiwi plant as well as the zucchini plant. I'll start off with the female. It's doing quite well. I took some Velcro tie, tied it to this trellis here, and it actually on its own came over and started twining its way around this wire. So I'm hopeful that that's going to definitely succeed. Unfortunately, the male is doing much less well. I had to take off a whole bunch of leaves that were just dead. They were curled up and brown, and so this is the last remaining bit of healthy growth. So I've attached it to the wire and hopefully it'll start twining like the female did. Here is my climbing zucchini, and as you can see, it's quite healthy. Tons of foliage, tons of tendrils. Unfortunately, not so much in terms of blooming flowers and no fruit. This, as you can see, it's a male flower. It has that thin stalk with a flower. Those are male flowers. If it's a female flower, it would have a bulge at the base, which is the baby fruit. So I'm hoping that maybe by the end of September, which is about the end of our growing season, it'll give me something, but I'm not really holding my breath. I just need to start things earlier next year. My grapevine is not as high as I was hoping it would be at this point. I was hoping that pretty soon I could just take off this small trellis and direct it onto the plastic. But unfortunately, a few weeks ago, a critter came by and had a little snack on my grapevine. So I am happy at least that it's bounced back. It's got a ton of new leaves. So hopefully it'll keep up the nice growth and I'll be able to direct it onto the tree and the nylon mesh. My strawberry patch is also looking a little raggedy because the critters also got into it and munched on some of the growth. It's kind of uneven because a lot of the growth is actually from runners. Over here, these are 2 tomato plants that are starting to give me some tomatoes. They look like cherry tomatoes. So there's some nice green ones over there. And over here, here's one that's actually starting to change color. So those will become yellow because this was a yellow cherry tomato variety. My beets are looking healthy above ground here as well as here. So it'll be interesting to see what they end up being below ground. Same with my rutabaga and carrots. I've already pulled up 1 or 2 carrots, and they're, nice and wide, but they're pretty short. Unfortunately, I kind of made a mistake in the garden by adding a layer of leaves at the end of last year, and so those leaves formed a mat and made it very hard for all my root vegetables to really grow down. So that's definitely something I'm not going to repeat. Over here is my little okra plant, which if you've been following me on Instagram, I actually did get one single piece of okra from. That was interesting because I've never eaten okra raw before, so I just stacked on it. It's definitely interesting, you know, the way the mucus kind of ends up in your mouth. It's a little gross, but I've heard it's also really healthy, so I'm definitely willing to try it again next year. Here's a little tomato plant with some cherry tomatoes. And here's another larger tomato plant. My dad jokingly calls these the Incognito Tomatoes because I've covered them with a piece of old pantyhose that I've sort of cut up. It's basically to try and dissuade critters from coming and taking a bite out of them. A few weeks ago I had a bit of a tragedy in the garden. I had these lovely green tomatoes. There was probably about 4 large green tomatoes that looked like they were just on the verge of changing color, and I came out the next day and they were gone. Something had a nice snack. Unfortunately, that seems to be a recurring theme here, much to my chagrin, since I have put a lot of effort into keeping critters away from my garden, so clearly I haven't been doing a good enough job. So far the pantyhose has seemed to be working well. I did take one tomato off that was starting to change color. It was in the pantyhose, but I decided to still take it off the plant and finish ripening it on a windowsill just to make sure that, you know, we still get that tomato, because even though the pantyhose seemed to work well, you never know, an animal might still come and decide to take a bite out of it. There are a couple flowers on this tomato plant. And over here on this pepper plant, which I've already taken off a couple small bell peppers, you can see there's another one growing right here. I believe there was 1 or 2. Here's one more. And I believe there's a really tiny one somewhere there. These are a bunch of beans and my chocha, which as you can see has gotten quite bushy. Over here on this tomato, there's some nice flowers up here. There's 3 nice looking tomatoes right here. So hopefully no animal will be able to get that because it's sort of held up off the ground by this trellis. What's kind of neat here is my sunflower has bloomed. Now it is looking a little raggedy because it has been bloomed for quite a long time. It's really exciting because I've never had a sunflower bloom before. We've never had enough sun in the area that we've planted the sunflowers. Here we have a jalapeno plant and 2 more jalapeno plants. These jalapeno plants have already taken off some jalapenos, and as you can see there's quite a few hanging on them, so that's really exciting. Once they all are mature, I'll probably take them off and freeze them and then be able to have them through the winter. I can see a cucumber right here, some flowers on my zucchini. Unfortunately, they're still male flowers. Haven't yet seen a female flower. The Artichoke plants are long, they need long seasons, so I'm not sure I'm going to get anything this year. Definitely next year I'm going to start them earlier. Whereas I had started them at the same time that I started my cucumber plants, I've actually heard that it's better to start them at the same time that you would start tomatoes. Now this is pretty exciting. This is my one of my broccoli plants, and as you can see I've got a floret growing, so that's awesome. These have been growing all summer, but I've definitely realized that broccoli, because they're cold weather crops, they don't really have a floret in hot weather, so because I planted them too late, they weren't able to grow floret in spring, and so we're not getting any until now. Here's some nice San Marzano tomatoes. There are 3 there, and then 1 more over here. It looks like I might be getting a little bit of blight, so I'm going to take off those leaves. And in fact, if you want to know more about how I sort of prevent or prolong the not having blight, check out my tomato pruning 101. Here's some more San Marzano tomatoes, nice nice size. There's 3 there and 2 over here. My sweet potato plant is nice and bushy. It's clearly not a vining type like some of the ones in the back. It'll be interesting to see how this one does in comparison to the ones in the back, since it'll give me an idea of, you know, whether sweet potatoes can do well in shadier spots, or whether they really do need a lot of sun. Here is a cucumber that I'm actually letting turn yellow. They're green when they're immature, but as they mature they turn yellow, and that's when they have their seeds have reached maturity. So I'm going to wait until it turns fully yellow and basically save the seeds for next year. Lastly, I have my little patch of hot peppers that I grew from seed, and when I planted them they were still really tiny because I didn't plant them nearly early enough. But I'm excited to see that there is one hot pepper forming, and there are some other flowers that will produce some hot peppers. So I'm gonna at least be able to taste this variety and see if I want to grow it again next year. So I'm happy about that. So that's how my garden has been doing lately. It hasn't been the most impressive this past season, largely because of the mistake I mentioned earlier. I'm definitely going to do better next year. I have a list of garden improvements that I've been slowly putting together as I sort of learn more about what I did wrong. And so I'm actually going to do a video probably later in the year once I've finished that list. So thanks for watching, and I hope your gardens are doing well. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Happy gardening!